Usually I don't make these videos. If you've seen my channel, you know it's a full of Konkai Star Rail and Genshin content, whatever. But do expect that I make more of these movie reviews, especially when there's a lot of movies coming out this summer, like Superman, Fantastic Four, F1. I'm looking forward to watch The Materialist. I think that's what it's called, the one with Chris Evans and Dakota Johnson. Obviously, because I'm going to do a review on this, I'm going to say this now. There are major spoilers that I will be discussing for me to, talk about this movie. And, just that's your warning now. But anyways, let's just get right into the movie review that I have from the world of John Wick, Ballerina. Normally, I'm not a fan of spin-offs, especially when big boy franchises like Star Wars and Marvel milks their content, And especially when it comes to, dare I say, female-led shows like She-Hulk or I think The Acolyte. Now, I haven't watched The Acolyte, but everyone's been saying the same thing. Oh, it's like these women, it's like, it's so woke and everything. And after watching She-Hulk, I can't help but feel like, I think I understand what they're talking about. With that being said, I couldn't help but my first thought when I heard that this movie was coming out, I was just like, please, make her a good main character. Just make her good. And I was just very worried that they were going to make her the female version of John Wick, because so far with Marvel, they've been giving us female version of certain Marvel characters. What I mean is, for example, I understand that there's She-Hulk in the comics. I understand that there's Ironheart and whatever in the comics. But they aren't going to be good if you just make them a female version of that character. In fact, I actually like their take on what they did with Eve McCarroll. That was the name of the character Ana de Armas was playing. I like how they acknowledged that she was a woman, but instead of making her super powerful most butchered female characters these days, they actually made it in a way, I would say, something to acknowledge. They acknowledged it as in, well, she gets her ass beat in most of the scenes because she's smaller than her opponents. Obviously, they're gonna have an advantage for physical strength and whatever. And I'm not saying, because they're a man or no, it's both man and woman, because she was fighting both genders, but she was mainly relatively small compared to them. But because she was small, she would, and because she understood that she's at a disadvantage with most of her opponents, she is actually very resourceful with her surroundings. She'll grab a pipe or whatever and smash her opponent in the head with it. It makes sense for her to be that kind of character. She can't rely on martial arts like John Wick. He does jujitsu, MMA moves or whatever, but she uses her surroundings, her environment to her advantage, which I thought was a really good way for her for them to make a character like her. And with that being said, her action scenes I thought were very well creative, and creative as in, in John Wick movies, the pencil fight and the flame shotgun fight or whatever that was, scenes like that are kind of uncommon and very well appreciated. They kind of did the same thing with this film. They had her pull off certain moves where it just it was so epic, but it wasn't the traditional punching fight scenes or whatever. They made some scenes worth watching, worth memorable. But with that, I do feel like some of the scenes were a bit redundant. It was cool the first time, but I felt like they were kind of dragging it on. And it did feel pretty cool to watch, especially with Eve with the flamethrower and her in that slow motion scene. I get it, but I was just let's kind of just keep it rolling here, And because there were so many action scenes, I felt like some of them could have been replaced with more explanation and more in depth with some of the characters that were introduced. For example, I know that they kind of went over briefly about her sister in the very beginning, but that was only for 2 seconds. I completely forgot that she even had a sister until that lady showed up, and she was just oh, no, wait, I'm your sister. Oh, and I'm jealous that you were chosen and I wasn't. And I was just interesting. I can see where this is going, but then they cut it off short and then they just kill her. And I was like, okay, so we're just gonna forget that then, or can we get some more emphasis on it? But we never really got that. So I was like, okay, I guess that's it. And with Norman Reedus' character, I couldn't help but think this is it's just Daryl Dixon in John Wick, in the John Wick universe. I thought his character was supposed to be like a supporting character, like kind of help her find the cults, the people with the mark on their wrist and whatever. But I think instead of having him be a side character, I think they kind of made him a character for, I guess, a certain like lesson or theme that you can get from this movie. I'll explain about that in a bit. I'll just go over the other parts that I want to say. They introduced this cult, like I mentioned, with Norman Reedus' like character, like this tribe that was involved. Where in the John Wick main universe, it was just mafia versus mafia. They introduced like a cult mafia, like they weren't playing by the rules. Whereas they kind of do, but not really. And they have no fear of breaking the rules, like how they did in the Continental. We all know that no business should be conducted in the Continental, but these guys did not care. They were out for blood. That's who they are. That's what they are. I thought it was an interesting take on what they did. Of course, when we've had in the last John Wick movie, we had like, I believe, dare I say, maybe I'm racist for saying this, but they had the Yakuza in it, right? Because they had Hiroyuki Yuki Sanada's character in like the whole like Japanese Continental. I just thought, okay, so this is like the Yakuza, no? I feel like that's fair to say. But they had a cult in this movie, so I thought, oh, this is pretty interesting. But I don't really understood the whole like purpose of what they do. I mean, obviously the leader, the mother of Ruska Roma, she was saying how they were just people who do what they do for sport. But I don't know, I feel like maybe there might have been a deeper meaning to this, or maybe if there wasn't, I feel like they could have. That's what I think. I'm not sure. I just thought they were just a weird faction that developed in this universe. And last but not least, I do want to say John Wick's role in this film, Keanu Reeves. Dude, I was worried because I thought they were going to undermine his character just for the sake of plot, or for, Eve McCarroll to be like, I thought they were going to make her like beat John Wick, but that wasn't the case, my headphones disconnected. They actually kept his role consistently as a side character, and I think it's really cool because I thought, when they get to this fight scene, he doesn't even try to kill her. She tries to kill him, but she's not capable of that because he's the Baba Yaga. He is capable of, okay, guys, let's be real. Eve McCarroll is a beginner assassin. She's not going to kill John Wick. And good, she didn't. She wasn't even close. But it was really cool on how they made him where it's like he's not trying to kill her. He just wants her to stop doing what she was doing. And of course, that whole fight scene ended with him beating her. But she was like, just give me more time. I have some time left until midnight to stop all of this. And he was like, all right, fine. And whereas obviously I don't really want to expect her fight this whole like cult that took away her father, like, that easily. Obviously she needed some help from the Baba Yaga himself. It was perfect. His role in the movie, perfect. I don't think there was any flaw with that. It made sense. It was great. I mean, yeah, it makes sense because he's also part of the Ruska Roma family as well. Oh yeah, what I meant by Norman Reedus' character being more of a character for like a theme for the lesson that I guess you can take away from this film is that everyone should have a choice. Whereas Eve McCarroll had a choice whether she wanted to join the Ruska Roma family to become an assassin, Norman Reedus' daughter didn't have a choice. They were gonna like groom her and like force her to be an assassin no matter what. Even when she didn't want that, she wanted to go back to her father. The leader of that cult, he was just like, nah, like your father broke custom, like, oh, you gotta stay with us, it was really interesting to see. And I liked how she got the ending. She had a choice to stay with her father. She made the choice that she wanted to be with her father, and Eve McCarroll helped give her that choice because where she didn't really have a choice to have a normal life, or she could have, but that was kind of robbed from her from this cult. You know, they killed her father. She had to take on this role to be an assassin, but at the end of the day, it was still her choice. I don't know if that really made sense on how I said that. Forgive me if that sounded a bit confusing, but I hope you guys know what I mean. The soundtrack of this movie, man, I feel like people don't really talk about that anymore, but I like how they kept, you know, in a way remind us that this is the John Wick universe by having that whole, like, John Wick theme into it. Like, you can hear it if you, like, it was like that, dun, 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 like that part, you know, it was just so nicely put. I like the soundtrack of the film. It was amazing. And kind of those subtle references that they do with other movies. Obviously, you know, Eve McCarroll with the flamethrower, it references to John Wick's like flame shotgun thing or whatever in the fourth movie. They also had the scene where it references to the second movie, I believe, which was the gun sommelier guy, like the guy who was like treating his the guns like it was like food or whatever. You know, they kept saying like, oh, like dessert or like dinner or whatever, or like social event, to like kind of disguise this whole thing, like not to like really like be obvious like we're selling guns. Like they just kind of had these like code words, right? So they had this guy in the movie kind of do the same thing, but he was like kind of using in terms of like hunting, like for sport and whatever, until that thing got interrupted real quickly with the action scenes. I mean, I just felt like it was action scene after action scene. It just kept like interrupting. It just showed up out of nowhere, and it's like I need a second to breathe, yo. Like, you know what I mean? Oh yes, that reminds me. I should go more in depth with what I mean about the redundancy of these action scenes. You see, it made sense when they did it for John Wick 4 because he's literally on a race against time. You know, the what is it? I forgot his name. The Marquis. He was trying to make sure that John Wick doesn't have time to meet at dawn to fight against Kane. And, you know, so he kept sending assassin after assassin after assassin, building up the, you know, building up the contract bounty. So it makes sense for him to not have a second to breathe. You know, there were just assassins going after her over and over. But it's like, well, okay, so it's kind of a bit confusing on why this cult wanted to kill Eve so badly. I felt like, I don't know, I understand if they were gonna try and like stop her once she invaded, but they were just going after her for like, they were like hunting her like straight up. They were out there for blood, which I guess that does explain the role of their faction. Like they are there to have like it's like a sport to them, like killing people. I don't know, I felt like there were some things I felt like could be explained a bit better, but I think the film was still good overall. With my overall rating on this movie, I say it's a 7 out of 10. I think it was entertaining. I think I would actually be down to watch the sequel if they do make a sequel, but I don't think I'll watch it opening night. I think I'll just wait until Tuesday where the discounts come in, you know, like just to save money. I don't think I'm really that into like, you know, watching something like this again. With that being said, that's all I gotta say. If there's anything I may have missed out, or maybe you want me to kind of bring up in future movie reviews, make sure to leave a comment. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe this channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.